hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish.
So let us not be blind to our differences, but let us also direct attention to our common interests and the means by which those differences can be resolved. And if we cannot end now our differences, at least we can help make the world safe for diversity. For in the final analysis, our most basic common link is that we all inhabit this small planet. We all breathe the same air. We all cherish our children's futures, and we are all mortal.
You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite.
Welcome to Unscripted with Daniel, your free, independent news source for Valparaiso and Indiana politics. Thank you so much for sitting down with me, Jon, Mayor of Valpo, to talk about the AHRC. There's a lot of controversy on both sides, and what's the bottom of it? We're trying to understand it, and I want to understand your perspective. I actually want to fry your brain first about just the history of the AHRC, because it's hard to find good resources online about it, because the internet wasn't, writing about the AHRC at that time.
Yeah, I think it's something we created probably about 15 years ago, maybe 16, 17 years ago, I think near the time when we created the local human rights ordinance. And so it was formed as a committee to advise the mayor on issues related to minorities and really to get out in front of any issues within the community before they become issues. Essentially, in Indiana, we have a strong mayoral form of government, so that the mayor directs all of the services of the city. We employ 400 people. So the mayor's office and his leadership, his or her leadership team directs all delivery of services, whether it be the Parks Department, whether it be safety, with regard to police and fire, whether it be utilities, we do have a utility board, whether it be planning, obviously trash, roads, taking care of roads, all those things. So I think the key was making sure that various minority groups in the community sort of had their voice heard. Yeah. And so we created an advisory committee, and we always try to make it pretty diverse group of people that in many ways represented these groups, so that if something came up, they could give me advice in making decisions to ensure that when I direct these services, that they're done in a way that every citizen gets the same level of service and the same consideration, and to make sure that it's being done equitably. So yeah, I think it's worked really well. From my standpoint of the mayor, I'm in my 5th term, and I think we've been able to get ahead of some of these issues. Can be emotional and spirited, and I think it's improved dialogue. Certainly has helped me enlarge my understanding of different groups and needs within the community. So I think it's functioned really well. I think we have a great president. Allison Qualkenbush is a trusted person and has led it well. And we've had many conversations along the way. And a lot of this happens behind the scenes when they're advising me, and I think it's helped promote peace and unity in the community. And so my position has been, I think it's functioning well from the standpoint of the mayor's office. My job is very different from the council. The council acts as a 7-member council. They have to act as a council. And they have some financial oversight, and they also enact local ordinances. And it's important that we work together, but I'm in charge of delivery of all services, and that's really where the touch point happens, particularly police, fire. These are the areas that often come into play when it comes to ensuring that that minorities are heard and respected.
Can you give an example of some issue that has come up and how the AHRC has been able to solve that with some minority group? You're noticing it through all these different channels of services that you're providing. That's right?
Yeah. Like I said, it often revolves around safety and police issues, but so one of the members of the AHRC is president of the local Jewish synagogue, Elizabeth Cohen, and there have been many instances where they've had potential threats, and so we've been able to get ahead of those and work closely with the police department to make sure that their members feel safe when they gather, and that we're being proactive. And so having her on that committee is just one example of just being able to understand the needs of a unique group that certainly has been targeted in some ways, and anti-Semitism. I've developed a great relationship with her, and I think it's meant a lot to their congregation. So that's just one of the examples of issues that might arise. If there's an issue of sometimes people, believe it or not, will allege issues that sometimes didn't happen, and so oftentimes we can get to the truth quicker and disseminate information saying, no, this really didn't happen that way, that this person made these allegations for reasons that were not reasonable, and we've investigated it, and here's what's happened, and here's what's really happened, and so it's quieted down that particular subcategory of people. Yeah, so that's happened, quite a bit. So it really happens behind the scenes and under the radar, but that's how a lot of community happens. I don't want to make an issue of everything. I just want to solve it. Yeah. And I want to get ahead of it proactively rather than be reactive. And so I think we put together a really great group of people that I think represent the various communities in our area, and I think it's worked well for its purposes. As I've said all along, the city council can create whatever committee they want to create. If they feel they want to create their own, I encourage them to do so. They have every right to do so. But their current attempt is to take the people on my committee and put them on their committee. So that's really what the ordinance does. And at the same time, it gives me, I think, 3 of the 9 appointments. And so I have said that I would prefer that they leave my committee intact, and I may take it in a different direction. I'm not sure.
So I want to maybe understand how your committee would function differently from theirs in your mind.
Well, see, that's the problem. I don't know what they want to do because they really haven't said what they want to do. All they're concerned about is it's not functioning like they'd like it to function, but they haven't been specific about how it's to function. So I can't compare the two. All I know is I think it works great for my purposes. My job is completely different than theirs. And so their committee is not going to function the way that an advisory mayoral committee functions. And how do they direct a committee when they have to act in concert? I'm just saying a board acts as a board, okay? And so there's different, some of these issues can be kind of salty and sticky because people have different beliefs, people have different values, people have different lifestyles, and the goal is to respect that and live together in peace and harmony, but at the same time, to realize that it's okay, we celebrate different things.
Thank you so much for coming in again.
Sure, glad to be with you.
Yeah, this is take 2. But we're going to start from the top. I wanted to ask about the history of the AHRC from your perspective when you took the lead on it.
Yeah, so I think we formed it about 14, 15 years ago when we were just kind of dealing with issues of changing citizenry here, and it seemed like a good idea. We also passed around that time a human rights, a local human rights ordinance too. So they kind of worked together. We had a number of public meetings, and out of that came the human rights ordinance, but also what we call an advisory human relations commission that advises the mayor just on issues regarding minorities and underrepresented groups, that sort of thing. And the purpose of it is just to make sure that those groups have a voice into the mayor's office, so that if they have special needs or concerns, or if there's any particular just concerns they have as a group, that the mayor becomes aware of it in order to get in front of issues and simply be better informed to deliver services. Because the mayor is, in Indiana, we have a strong mayoral form of government, so the mayor is the executive and is in charge of all service delivery, virtually all spending of the city, and so I, as mayor, direct the services, police, fire, planning, parks, road maintenance, water, sewer utilities. We have about 400 employees. And essentially, I think it was formed just to make sure that I had a broad base of information and understanding of our citizens, so that I can provide those services fairly and equitably, and make sure that we get ahead of issues that could erupt, and I think it's worked really well. And it's made up of a very diverse group of people that I think represent a number of our minorities and underrepresented groups. And Allison Quackenbush has served as the director since I've been back in the mayor's office a couple years ago, and she does a fantastic job, and it's been very helpful to me. I've spent quite a bit of time with her and having conversations with other members, and it's given me a broader perspective on who I provide service, who I serve.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I just want to maybe draw a distinction between how a grant versus a service. If there is an interruption of service to a particular group of people, you would be addressing that. Whereas if it is a cultural event, that's not necessarily a service, and you're just basically focused on the fundamentals of
core city services.
Core city services.
So that's my job, and the better we provide core city services efficiently, effectively, responsibly, the better everyone is. Mm-hmm. So grant funding is using tax dollars, and we do it in various situations. Like we do it for neighborhood grants, because neighborhoods know what can improve their neighborhood. So we have a grant process. So we use tax dollars for something like that, but that's not associated around minorities or cultural events or groups. Those typically are, I think, outside of the purview of funding, local funding. So we do neighborhood, and we have neighborhood grants where they can have neighborhood get-togethers, but that means everybody in the neighborhood is part of that. There's no differentiating them based upon who they are, what their background is, and any ethnicity or anything like that.
So hypothetically, if someone wanted to, instead of present a grant to the HRC, they could have a Latino community, for example, set up a neighborhood and create events for their neighborhood and sort of accomplish the same result.
Well, these are two different programs. So the neighborhood grants are through our community development office, and they are neighborhood associations come together, and they have to be grants to make physical improvements. There's also a limited number of grants to have block parties, but not parties, parties for the whole neighborhood.
Right.
But the neighborhood grants are for like improving your signage, improving, putting in a garden, putting in some entranceway, or those sorts of things. But that's not through the AHRC. The AHRC grants were sort of a program that was revised that ultimately I felt that tax dollars should not be used for cultural grants, because we celebrate different cultures. We celebrate different beliefs, different values. We celebrate different lifestyles, and ultimately the city isn't there to weigh in on that. The city is there to make sure everybody gets city services delivered in an excellent way, in an equitable way. So that's why I felt that that because people say, well, I really don't want my tax dollars going for that purpose in terms of, because again, it has to do with beliefs, lifestyles, core values, those sort of things. We celebrate different things, and that's good. That's what communities are about. We need to learn to say it's okay that you celebrate these things, I celebrate these things, but we can live together as a community. And I just need to stay focused on delivering core city services, and fairly, but also to provide police protection. There's some disadvantaged groups. We have a Jewish congregation that we work closely with because we see evidence of anti-Semitism in today's world, and we want to get ahead of that, and we want to make sure people are safe. Another thing is we have regular protests against the current national Republican administration. So people want to protest against it. So we work with the organizer of that protest to make sure that people are able to do that safely. And so that's our main job, is to make sure that we live in a safe community and people have the freedom to express themselves, how they want to live, and what they want to celebrate.
Yeah, I think that it's a hard line to walk as a mayor and have everybody sort of understand where you're coming from as far as being non-political. You really are go out of your way to not be political, and it's honorable. But sometimes I think people confuse a non-stance as a stance on an issue. Everyone has their stances. And
well, I feel first of all, everybody has their styles of leadership too. So and leadership is very important when it comes to running the city, because ultimately this is sort of like a big business in some ways. You're overseeing 400 people and you're delivering services. Now, at the same time, it's not a business. It's different, very different from a business.
Yeah.
So I don't speak out a lot. I don't have a presence on social media. I don't try to take strong political stance, because I feel that makes me better to serve everybody. Because if I'm a very political person and I always talk about opinions of this or that, or trying to promote my party over another party, then that would limit my ability to represent everybody. So, and I tend to keep under the radar, because as a leader, I want other voices to be heard first, okay? Because sometimes your voice is too magnified by your position. So I really try to just let others speak first. I think in today's world, people have, there's, social media, they have all kinds of tools to speak their mind, and I encourage them to do so kindly, and hopefully in a fairly balanced way, trying to understand both sides of the issue. So, but personally, I think it's better for elected officials to be more judicious in how they express their opinions, but that's just my idea of what leadership looks like, and what works best in the public arena.
Yeah, everyone has their style, like you said, and it's understandable. They said that you said, I want to stop talking about our differences, and I'm not sure what to read into that, and I just want to get your opinion on, or your meaning on, you want to stop talking about our differences in regarding to the AHRC.
So I have no idea what they're referring to.
Okay.
I don't know the context of that comment. But as mayor, I'm trying to get people to focus on what holds us together. Okay, these days everybody got strong opinions, and the media focuses us and tends to divide us. National politics divides us. Social media can be very divisive. And, I'm just trying to be a peacemaker. And so I'm encouraging people to focus on the things we have in common, and to make room for the fact that we believe difference, that we of course we have differences.
Right.
And it seems sometimes, that's all social media is talking about our differences. That can take a toll on the community. As mayor, I'm trying to be a peacemaker, help people see all the wonderful things that we have in common. We have great schools here. We have great nonprofits here. We have an economy that is more affordable than our neighbors in Illinois. We have the lake. We have access to the big city. We have a wonderful citizenry here. There's so much to be thankful for. Life is short.
Yeah.
And so that's just my nature. I talk about civility a lot. I talk about trying to be kind and showing grace to others, and not always, expressing strong opinions or judging people so much. And I try to emulate that as best I can. So that's part of who I'm trying to be as a person, but also that's the way I try to lead as mayor. So we all have differences, and it's like, some days I wake up and I don't agree with what I felt the day before. it's just life, So let's spend more time focusing on the positives, and appreciating our differences. If we were all the same, it'd be pretty boring around here.
It would. So let's jump into a discussion on this Ordinance 8. The time passed for submission of the ordinance, so it's effectively vetoed. And I want to ask you, what was your thinking behind not passing this legislation?
Sure. Well, again, reasonable people can differ, and so I can accept and respect their position, but not agree with it. So my job is completely different from the council. They are 7 members that act as a board. So they always need 4 votes to do anything. And that's the nature of a board. We have a strong mayoral form of government in Indiana, and my job is to oversee. I'm the executive, so I oversee the provision of city services with our 400 employees, and the day-to-day operations. So it's my job. I have many touch points, and particularly in safety, issues of safety, police, fire, EMS, is where you might, have issues regarding safety, keeping the peace and safety. And so I felt the AHRC that we created was really quite helpful to me because they were a group of diverse people who understood the community and in a broader way than I do, and who could speak into situations as they arose and just help me understand what might be some unique needs in the community, so that we can provide services in a way that helps people the most.
Right.
And people can speak, they speak very frankly to me. Sometimes we agree, we don't, but I appreciate the great people, and I appreciate the fact that they have an ear to the mayor's office, and I have a strong working relationship with Allison Qualkenbush, and we meet regularly, and frankly, it's been very helpful to me, I think, and it's really helped me to provide services in a more effective way. And so the council feels that the Advisory Human Relations Commission should be do other things, and I'm not sure what it is because they haven't yet really been specific about that. And so that's why I disagree. That's the mayor's committee. The mayor has a unique job. It's effective. They are free to create their own committee. Whatever, they've created an environmental committee, and that's all council appointments, and I have no problem with that. And in this case, they want to take members of my committee and put it on their committee, and they get the vast majority of the appointments. And it really becomes a committee that they control through appointments.
Right.
They have a different view on what that should do. So the point is I guess I ask for two things. Don't transfer people on my committee onto your committee without even asking them to do this. I mean, just form your own committee. And B, don't give me any appointments on that committee because it's a council-controlled committee. They have a different view on what it should do, and they have every right to do that. But if you give me a few, 3 appointments out of 9 or something, then it really maintains the control and the direction of the council. Okay, and they can advise the council. But I already have a group advisory me that I'm comfortable with, Now, it's a diverse group, but these are people that I've built a relationship with, and, strong, trusting relationships is how things get done.
Mm-hmm.
And so those two, so at last council meeting, I asked that they would amend it accordingly, and they chose not to, so there's not been much collaboration here.
Mm-hmm.
And if we need to collaborate to get things done, and so that's why I felt a veto was warranted. And if they get 5 votes on Monday, they'll be able to override that veto. Right. So they need 1 more vote to override a veto. Instead of 4, they'll need 5 votes.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
And they passed it with 5.
They did. So
unless somebody changes their mind, it will probably go this way.
It could. I've asked them all to reconsider, and so sometimes people do, and so I'm hoping they will.
Okay. Well, time will tell this coming Monday.
Sure.
I don't know if I asked you about this last time. Somebody said, a council member, that you said, he said, she said,
mm-hmm.
that the AHRC has run its course. I'm not sure what that means, and maybe you don't even remember saying those words.
Yeah. Well, there's been a lot of sort of going back and forth, on this issue, and the question is how much is this needed? I mean, are we having real issues in the city where people feel threatened? I mean, I think we have some policing and security issues, particularly, with our Jewish congregation. That's one where there's been a sort of clear threat, not so much locally, but nationally. I think we're a community that is pretty welcoming, and we don't have a lot of overt, just
Racism,
yeah,
whatever.
exactly.
All those
Yeah, I mean,
types
it's kind of like, I think to some degree we've come a long way, 20 years, and that's not just me saying that. I mean, that's people that are part of some of these underrepresented groups saying that it's a pretty copacetic city that just says, we just want to get along, work together well, and celebrate the fact that we celebrate different things, and we can do that and respect one another. So I do believe it's different than it was 20 years ago, and I think maybe that comment was reflecting the fact that we've made a lot of progress, and we've had no complaints, official complaints under our human rights ordinance, and so I think that's something that we can be happy about and realize that I think we've got a pretty pretty good community that knows how to work together and focus on the things we do agree with, and be okay with the things that the differences that we have. That's what community does.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that comment was actually, I think that comment was along those lines, and saying I think we made some good progress, and I think we have a community that is fairly unified and I think quite welcoming.
Yeah, I would agree that we have a very welcoming community. I have experienced a few things, but like for example, when I was talking to a protester, they said it's the Jews, and it's like, really, they have the confidence to say that from their car in public. And there was another incident where I was working at a register at Family Express, and then there was an African American woman there, and he was saying things like, go back to Africa, and these types of statements, they harken back to a time we like to think, doesn't exist anymore. But I think a fear that maybe Democrats, minorities, those groups of people might have is that if there isn't somewhere where they can voice those concerns, then it's possible society can backslide. And I would say that's probably one of the biggest concerns.
Well, democracy is only good as the quality of its people,
Right.
And you're talking about animosity that is can be directed at any group, and there are always outliers, and there are always
Yes.
people. I mean, there are people who say hurtful, hateful things, and they are outliers, and we can't put them in jail for that.
No.
But we can set good examples. So it's hard to make law or policy based upon aberrant behavior like that, which I think is fairly unusual in our city. All we can do is set a good example and show kindness and show respect. As a believer, as a follower of Jesus Christ, every person is made in the image of God. Every person deserves respect and dignity of being made in God's image, and so that's the way. That there's an inherent dignity in each person, and we should strive to show that respect. And yes, we can call people out on that. I mean, if you're next to somebody and they say something, I would encourage citizens to correct them and best to ignore them, but there's outliers. It's not a lot. Those people aren't gonna, respect the law. They've got probably bigger issues than that going on. But I think it's pretty rare,
I think it is too.
in our city, and and we can't hold that as a standard because it's not. It's clearly the exception rather than the rule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's true. And now, just because I brought this up in the other version of this interview on take one, if there is an official who talked about people who come from other cities, and they come into our city and they bring drugs and they bring crime and, you know, being classist, there's racist, there's these things, and, you know, and that's another view that's abhorrent, but like you said, it's not something that can be legislated, but addressing it maybe is not, in your opinion, the role of the AHRC, but Democrats believe that it should be.
The point of this question is to show that we haven't really gone that far. If even somebody in a leadership position, the former outgoing school board president Barand, is willing to say things that are classist, that could border on the side of racist, then how can we really say we've gone that far, or have progressed as a community?
Well, we live in a great country. Freedom of speech is a beautiful thing, and it must be protected. And it means that we put up with a lot of foolish speech sometimes. And we've all said things that we regret. Sometimes in a heated moment, sometimes in response to a lot of the negativity and that on social media, we lose our cool and we say things. But let those comments stand on their own merits, and you can just respect that person less, or maybe if you have a chance, talk to them about it. But who's going to be the thought police? It's
Yeah.
like and say, well, you crossed the line, and so we need to be very careful with that, and just people will say things that you don't agree with. They may say things that they regret the next day when they wake up. I think we've all done that.
Mm-hmm.
Give them more grace, and just and then yourself, you set a good example. And if you have the opportunity to talk to that person, but to call everybody out who's in some sort of leadership capacity, it's just, I don't have time to do that. I don't think that's my role as mayor. My role is to make sure that we provide excellent city services in an efficient and cost-effective way, and that we build a city that people want to call home. And we are, I believe, the jewel of Northwest Indiana. And of course, I'm going to be a little bit prejudiced in that, in that regard, but in the sense that it's my hometown, and it's a place that I think is very special. The people, the schools, nonprofits, businesses, just the kindness of our citizens, and the talent that they bring. So, and that's why people want to live here,
Right.
And that's why we're growing, and that's. And so let's stay focused on those things and set good examples, and hopefully those who have attitudes that need to be changed, they'll come around someday, because we're all works in progress, and some have a little further to go than others. But I think for the most part, it's quite a caring and kind and accepting community.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you very much for all your time.
Yeah, sure.
And
Glad to do it, Daniel.
and maybe we'll have another discussion, not on this.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but then there's always new issues.
Always new issues.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Thanks for joining me on Unscripted with Daniel. And if you're watching on WVOP, be sure to tell a friend about this great broadcast. And if you're listening on YouTube, then subscribe and like this video. Thanks so much. See you next time.